As leaders, we really hate talking about our own workplace anxiety. That constant worry about team performance, the 3 a.m. wake ups thinking about project deadlines, the racing thoughts before important presentations, the fear that you're not doing enough or being enough for your team. If you've experienced any of this, you're not alone. And today we're going to talk about the effects of this anxiety, what causes it, and how you can combat this anxiety using something called positive intelligence. I'm Emily Haverkamp. I'm a Gallup-certified strengths coach and a positive intelligence coach. I've discovered that anxiety, it isn't just a personal challenge. It's a leadership challenge that affects everything from decision making to team culture. And I'm excited to share positive intelligence concepts with you because it's been one of the most effective things for me to quell my own workplace anxiety. So the good news, positive intelligence, it does give us practical tools to transform anxiety into calm, focused leadership. This framework, developed by Shirzad Chamine and backed by neuroscience research, helps us understand how our mind works and give us specific techniques to overcome the thought patterns that fuel our anxieties. Today, I'll show you how to identify which anxiety-producing thought patterns, or saboteurs as we'll call them, are affecting your leadership and give you practical techniques to overcome them. But before we dive into these techniques, let's quickly understand what's happening inside your mind when you're experiencing anxiety and it takes over your leadership. Research in neuroscience shows that anxiety activates your brain's limbic system, your survival brain, that triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response that many of us are familiar with. When you're in this state, blood flow literally decreases to your prefrontal cortex. This is the region that's responsible for your strategic thinking, your creativity, and your empathy, all of which are really important for leaders. And this is why anxiety, it doesn't just feel terrible, it actually impairs your leadership capabilities. As a manager, you probably noticed this. When anxiety spikes, you might be more controlling, more irritable, or alternatively, avoid making decisions altogether because you just almost can't. And this isn't a character flaw. It's your brain actually trying to protect you, but it's using outdated survival mechanisms that don't serve leadership challenges. So positive intelligence, it gives us a framework to intercept this process. The research shows that with consistent practice, you can strengthen neural pathways that activate your sage brain, the regions associated with clear thinking, empathy, and creative problem solving, even during the most stressful of situations. So let's identify which anxiety-producing thought patterns might be affecting your leadership specifically. In positive intelligence, the negative thought patterns that generate anxiety are called saboteurs. Each of us, we have a unique combination, with one or two that tend to be the most dominant. So let's meet the ones today that most commonly are associated with leadership anxiety. So first, we'll start with the hypervigilance saboteur. This saboteur is constantly on high alert, scanning for what might go wrong. As a manager with a strong hypervigilant, you probably anticipate problems that never materialize, create detailed contingency plans for very unlikely scenarios, and you have trouble being present in the moment because you're always thinking about potential future problems. While some vigilance is definitely helpful, this saboteur creates exhausting levels of worry, and it rarely produces outcomes. Studies show hypervigilant leaders report 58% higher stress levels while achieving no better results than their more balanced peers. Next up is the judge saboteur. The judge, it's constantly finding fault. It's finding fault with yourself, it's finding fault with your team, and it's finding fault with all the circumstances around you. As a manager of a strong judge, you likely set impossibly high standards for yourself and others. You focus more on what's going wrong than what's going right. And you create team cultures where people are constantly fearing mistakes. The judge creates anxiety by setting up a world where nothing is ever good enough. And this includes your own leadership. Then there's the controller saboteur. The controller believes anxiety can only be managed by taking charge. As a manager of this saboteur, you probably struggle to delegate effectively, feel responsible for everyone else's work, and you experience heightened anxiety when things are outside your direct control. The irony of the controller is that by trying to manage your anxiety through control, it actually increases your stress, because now you're responsible for everything. Then we have the stickler. The stickler, it creates anxiety through perfectionism and rigid expectations. As a manager with this saboteur, you likely get caught in analysis paralysis, focus excessively on process rather than outcomes, and you experience anxiety when things don't go exactly according to plan. Sticklers, they tell themselves that this is their highest standards, but actually, you're creating unnecessary pressure and inefficiency. Then we have the hyperachiever. The hyperachiever ties self-worth entirely to external achievement. As a manager of this saboteur, you probably experience things like this. You feel anxious whenever you're not visibly productive. You push yourself and your team to constant action. And you struggle with imposter syndrome no matter what accomplishments you have. The hyperachiever, it creates a treadmill of achievement that actually never reduces anxiety. There's always the next goal to chase. Finally, there's the pleaser. This is my personal most frequent saboteur. The pleaser, it generates anxiety around others' approval and happiness. The pleaser, you generate, like me, anxiety around others' approval and happiness. As a manager of this saboteur, you likely worry excessively about team members' reactions, you avoid necessary but difficult conversations, and you experience anxiety when making decisions that you feel might disappoint others. And the thing is, as a boss, you're always going to disappoint someone. The pleaser creates leadership anxiety by making you feel responsible for everyone else's feelings and happiness, which is something you're never going to be able to achieve. So, how do you identify your personal saboteurs? Take a moment to reflect. Which of these saboteurs most resonated with you in your own experience when you have anxiety in a leadership role? While we often have several active at different times, most of us have one or two that dominates. If you're not sure, think about your last high-stress situation. What were the thoughts running through your mind? Was it, what if something goes wrong? This points to hypervigilant. I need to take charge of this. This suggests the controller. This isn't good enough yet, indicates a stickler or judge. Once you've identified your primary anxiety saboteurs, you're ready to learn how to overcome them using specific positive intelligence techniques. I'm going to put a link to the assessment that is on the Positive Intelligence site so you can take the assessment yourself as well. Now I'll introduce you about how to combat these saboteurs, the PQ system. Positive Intelligence uses a metric called Positive Intelligence Quotient to measure your mental fitness. Higher PQ means you spend more time in your SAGE mode, the calm, creative, solution-oriented state, rather than in your saboteur-driven, anxious state. So here's a 3-step system to increase your PQ and transform leadership anxiety. First, you would intercept your saboteur. The crucial step is learning to catch your saboteurs in action before they hijack your leadership. When you notice anxiety rising during your workday, pause and ask yourself, which saboteur is active right now? Simply naming it creates crucial mental distance. Research in neuroscience shows that this act of labeling actually reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center. For instance, in a stressful meeting, you might notice your heart racing, and you think, this presentation has to be perfect, or I'm going to question my competence. Instead of being consumed by this thought, you'd recognize, oh wait, that's my stickler and my judge, and they're working together to sabotage me. So let's do a practice exercise, the 3-breath reset. When you notice anxiety emerging, take 3 breaths. With the first breath, pause and identify the saboteur. Second breath, put your feet on the ground, feel them, shifting to the physical sensation. Third breath, ask yourself, how would my sage handle this? Leadership research shows that this brief intervention, taking less than 10 seconds, can reduce subjective anxiety by up to 42% in high-pressure situations. So now you've intercepted the saboteur. The next step is deliberately activating your sage, that part of your brain we talked about that's capable of calm, creative leadership, even under high pressure. So what you need to do is a sage perspective shift. The sage perspective comes from asking better questions. These are the questions that you're asking inside your head. Instead of the saboteur questions that fuel your anxiety, sometimes we talk about intrusive thoughts. What if I fail? What if something else goes wrong? Try these stage questions instead. What can I learn from this situation? How might this challenge serve a greater purpose for me? What's one small step I can take right now? Studies show that leaders who practice perspective shifting questions show measurable increases in prefrontal cortex activation, literally turning on their leadership brain instead of their anxiety brain. Here's another exercise, the gift frame. When facing a stressful leadership situation, ask, if this challenge were happening for me rather than to me, what might the gift or opportunity be here? This is not about toxic positivity. It's about engaging your brain's capacity for innovative problem solving rather than threat detection. Leadership research shows this reframing technique correlates with 51% higher rates of innovative solutions to workplace challenges. Finally, the last step is to build your brain muscles with PQ reps. You would build your mental fitness through daily practice, making the first two steps increasingly automatic. Just as physical fitness requires consistent training, mental fitness requires regular PQ reps, brief moments throughout the day where you shift from saboteur to sage mode. The simplest PQ rep is shifting attention to physical sensation for 10 seconds. For instance, feel the sensation of your fingers touching one another. Just really focus on it. Notice the feeling of your feet making contact with the floor. Focus on the 3 full breaths we talked about, feeling the air moving through your body. Neuroimaging research shows that after 6 to 8 weeks of consistent practice, just 15 minutes daily, measurable changes occur in the brain regions associated with anxiety and executive function. So how would you specifically do this as a leader? Here's how, as a leader, you can integrate your PQ reps into your daily routine. Before opening your email where you're probably having thoughts of, what's awaiting me right now? Do one 10-second PQ rep to shut down those saboteurs. Prior to important meetings, take 3 conscious breaths. When feeling the pressure of decisions, pause for a 10-second reset. Research with executives shows that those who practice this technique for 8 weeks report 37% reduction in stress reactions, 46% improvement in clear decision-making, and 39% enhancement in team communication. Anxiety doesn't have to be the price of leadership. By understanding and applying the positive intelligence framework, you can transform anxiety from a leadership liability into an opportunity for greater awareness and effectiveness. The managers I've worked with who implement any of these practices consistently report not just reduced anxiety, but enhanced leadership capabilities, more innovation, better team relationships, and clearer decision-makings. I know it has really helped me. Remember, this isn't about eliminating anxiety completely. It's about developing the mental fitness to lead effectively, even when anxiety is present. The goal, it's not to never feel anxious. It's to keep anxiety from making your leadership decisions for you. And if you would like to learn more about positive intelligence and how it can help you overcome self-doubt, stick around for my next video.